degrees Celsius possible through the central belt of Scotland as well. The showers will tend to ease off as we do move into the evening, sort of rumbling a little bit across parts of northwest England, southwest Scotland before eventually dying their way out. And many of us will then see a dry second half of the night with some clear spells. Some mist and fog will develop in places, pushing in across the eastern coast at a time with that breeze coming in off the North Sea. But it will be relatively mild, temperatures in the south particularly holding up in double-digit figures, single figures more likely across areas to the north and the east. Well, away from some cloud across the far north coast of Scotland, it's likely to be a very bright, sunny morning for most of us on Tuesday. Again, there'll be some showers and thunderstorms cropping up, but this time much more limited to parts of South Wales and areas of the West Country. And many of us really will get away with a nice, fine, warm, dry day. Temperatures again peaking in the 20s, perhaps 25 degrees Celsius in the south and east. And the theme throughout the rest of this week is for the sunshine really to be prevailing, remaining dry for most of us with some warm conditions persisting.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Maintenance diversions are in effect on the M48 westbound between junctions 1 Ost and 2 Newhouse due to a bridge closure. In Gateshead, a collision on the A1 southbound has closed 2 of 3 lanes, leading to 30-minute delays between junctions with A692 and A167 Washington-Bertley Road. Normal traffic should resume by 11:38 this morning. There's a road incident on the Derbyshire A50 westbound between A514 and A38, causing significant delays. And on the trains, Southern and Thameslink services are reduced between Uckfield or East Grinstead and East Croydon. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
They're saying all the right things. They've set some examples. They've given a bit of perspective. You know, I think it is true. I don't think there is a toxic environment working there. I worked for the BBC for 31 years and I still contribute to the BBC and I'm in touch with a lot of people that work there. I don't think anyone would say it's toxic, but it is true. There are pockets of bad behaviour. There are certain individuals who have regarded themselves as untouchable, where people feel they can't speak up. So I think the report's accurate, and I think, you know, a reset on behaviour, the emphasis on calling it out, more transparency and improved HR process, all of that is really good. But my 2 main concerns, one is we've been here before, haven't we? Because we had a report after the Jimmy Savile scandal, and that just, you know, it felt like really nothing changed after that. So my concern is this is just going to be another report, lots of fine words and so on, nothing really changes significantly. The second thing I think is missing from the report, and it hardly gives any attention to this, is the huge salaries that are earned by some individuals, both in front of the screen and behind the camera, you know, in managerial roles and senior editor roles. And, you know, compared with what producers and journalists are earning, there are massive imbalances there. There are some people who are earning 200, 300, 400, 500,000 pounds and more, working with people who are on 35, 40,000 pounds. And when you get imbalances like that, that accentuates the risk of bad behavior. It creates disharmony within teams, and I've seen it myself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Britain's Newsroom. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning. So is Britain finally closing its borders? That's the plan of Sir Keir Starmer, who has just this morning declared that Britain's open-door immigration approach is a failure. He's unveiled what he's describing as a strict new English test, tougher residency rules and plans to defy European courts.
Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change. that will finally take back control of our borders and close the book on a squalid chapter for our politics, our economy and our country.
So Keir Starmer says we risk becoming an island of strangers and forces are pulling us apart as he pledges 5 times to take back control of our borders. But do we believe him this time when the Tories have failed so many times?
In 2019, it was widely believed in the United Kingdom and abroad that the UK was not only properly prepared, but was one of the best prepared countries in the world to respond to a pandemic. This belief was dangerously mistaken.
230 million and counting. The COVID inquiry is on track to break all records, becoming the most expensive inquiry in the country's history. We'll find out why it's just such a staggering amount and ask the question, is there any point to it anyway?
Is it your position that trans women are...
And the First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, will not be impressed with the major change hitting the Scottish Parliament today.
Yes, from today, the Scottish Parliament will no longer allow trans women to use the women's bathrooms. 3 new gender-neutral bathrooms will be there in their place, which the presiding officer hopes for more dignity and clarity in the weeks going forward.
Damning damage revealed. A powerful new documentary has exposed the hidden dangers of smartphones on our children's health, and it's ignited a nationwide campaign for immediate action to address what's being called the silent epidemic.
This judgment was based on no evidence whatsoever. Over 100 Special Forces soldiers have been summoned before these inquiries. Not one IRA leader has been summoned in the same way.
That is, of course, the very principled Sir David Davis, calling for stronger protections for military personnel as a coroner's ruling challenges the justification of SAS killings in Northern Ireland. He's going to be joining us in the studio a little later.
The BAFTA goes to...
And the BAFTA goes to... And the BAFTA goes to...
And the BAFTA goes to...
And the award goes to...
Well, it should have gone to Britain's Newsroom, really, shouldn't it? We're going to get the latest from the world of showbiz and BAFTA just a little later in this show.
Let us know your thoughts on all of our big stories this morning. Obviously, just hot off the press, this Keir Starmer announcement.
And highly unusual for him to do a press conference at 8:30 to catch the morning programmes, make sure we've got it on our programme in time for our breakfast show here.
I'm not sure that was a coincidence, Andrew Pearce.
Absolutely.
I think he might have known what a glowing welcome, and we would greet that speech with such appreciation this morning. He thought, I'll get it on in time for Britain's Newsroom.
Yeah.
Well, we'll tell you
because
exactly.
there wasn't much to it.
We'll tell you what we thought of it after the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you very much. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer has promised a significant fall in net migration. He said this morning, without controls on immigration, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. The government's unveiling its long-awaited white paper outlining how it plans to cut net migration. The proposal will include things like a 10-year citizenship wait and a crackdown on foreign care workers. The change from 5 to 10 years will come with exceptions for people who make a high contribution to the economy or society, who will be able to be fast-tracked for permanent settlement rights. In other news from today, trans women are to be banned from female toilets in the Scottish Parliament following last month's landmark Supreme Court ruling that biological men cannot change their legal sex. Alison Johnston, the presiding officer, said access to Holyrood's toilets would be based on biological sex, but some existing lavatories would be designated as gender-neutral spaces. Equalities campaigners have warned the decision will leave trans people excluded at the heart of Scotland's democracy. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has offered to meet the Russian president in Turkey in person on Thursday. It comes after he said his team were ready to meet Russian representatives following a Vladimir Putin suggestion of peace talks. subject to an unconditional ceasefire starting today. Russia's president put forward the proposal for talks in Istanbul on Thursday after European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, threatened him with fresh sanctions if Russia failed to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire starting today. The US president has urged Russia to accept the meeting invitation immediately. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at 10 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. It is 9:36. We're with you until midday this morning.
Big start to the day, big start to it politically. The Prime Minister holding a press conference in number 10, in that special media room, at 8:30. He's clearly, with his new comms team, he's got a new head of comms there now, trying to get onto the morning breakfast shows and set the agenda, as opposed to normally doing it mid-morning or late morning when he loses the breakfast shows.
It's a very good point. And actually, I thought from a sort of performance point of view for Keir Starmer, I thought he was good this morning. He wasn't just reading from notes like he normally does. I thought he spoke very well. It appeared that he was speaking from the heart, but he did seem to try on multiple occasions to try to explain, this isn't new for me to be so anti-immigration. I have been talking like this for years.
Except when he set out his 6, what were they called? Were they mission statements? There was no mention of immigration. And in December, when he reset the government because it was doing so badly, and they had 8, they finally added it then. So it's taken him a long time to get on the front foot. And we really know what this is all about. It's about the huge success of reform in the local elections and in that by-election. He knows he's got a problem. Immigration is probably the biggest issue after the cost of living crisis.
Migrants will need to spend up to a decade in the UK before they can apply for citizenship, as opposed to 5 years now. English language requirements are going to be increased, not just for people applying for visas, but also for family members that would come with them.
Where are we going to teach them English? Where's this going to happen? In schools? Colleges? Who's paying for it?
Very good question. He didn't seem to answer a lot of those questions. No. He did talk. It was very principled. It was all about the ideology behind why some people might be object to mass migration. But he didn't really talk about the how. No. There was very little how in there at all. He said skilled foreign workers are going to have to be required to have a degree to get a job in the UK. Is that necessary?
Also that it means no more foreign workers working in our care homes. So how are we going to fill the gaps then? How are we going to get those people who are on benefits currently into those jobs? Because that is the elephant in the room.
The care home issue is where I think he's got it horribly wrong. Who are carers? They tend to be female.
They do.
They tend to be slightly older, maybe. Yep. They tend to sometimes be maybe past motherhood even, just want to come over here and do a different job at a different stage in life. Most people, I think, if you ask them on the street, what kind of immigration are you OK with? They would say, don't mind women in their 60s and 50s who want to come and look after elderly people. And yet, that is the category that he's going to clamp down on. That's insane.
And if he'd worked out a way of getting those vacancies filled now, there's 100,000 vacancies in the care home system already. 100,000. And that's before he puts this ban on foreign workers taking the jobs. There'll be 250,000 vacancies soon. And we still don't have a social care plan either, Prime Minister.
No, nobody's got this issue right. Even Richard Tice of the Reform Party was on one of the other channels this morning talking about this and saying how we need to get our own young people working in the care sector.
Yeah, well, how do we do it?
I'm so sorry, Richard Tice. You're not going to get a 22-year-old young man want to go and empty bedpans. You're just not. We need the people who want to do those jobs. You don't go into that vocation for money. You go into it because it's a love of caring, actually, and looking after people. Let's have a look. Chris Hope was there at the press conference this morning. Interesting, I noticed. Keir Starmer gave the channel and the name of every reporter who asked him a question. When it came to Christopher Hope, he didn't. He just said, Christopher Hope. Let's have a look.
So, GB News. Prime Minister, we've been here before, haven't we? There have been 3 immigration acts since 2014. The Immigration Act in 2014 and 2016 both aimed to reduce immigration. They both failed. Why on earth should GB News viewers think you're going to succeed? And why not give us a promise right now? Why give us a fixed target right now, not a promise, so we can judge you on success? The Tories at least did that, but they failed.
Well, look, the difference here, this is the most comprehensive plan that has been put forward. It's been forward to end the Tory sort of open borders experiment that we have had. You're right about that. And it looks at all routes and it's comprehensive. and it does the hard yards of linking skills and business to what we need to do with the economy. So it's not a narrow look just at the numbers. It puts them in their proper context. On the question, which we do want to significantly reduce migration, I'm absolutely making clear that's what it will do, and that if we need to go further, we will. So that's the promise I make to your viewers. I don't think it's sensible to put a hard-edged cap on it. That has been done in one form or another for the best part of 10 years by different prime ministers. The only thing that links those prime ministers and the various caps or quotas or limits they put in place is every single one of them failed. And therefore, going down the failed route is not a sensible way for me. As with everything that I do, serious, pragmatic, looking at the things that will actually make a material difference.
And we won't be able to judge him because he hasn't set a metric by which to judge him, which is not very brave, in my opinion.
Not even a vague target. We're going to get it below 500,000.
No,
or 400,000.
Which would suggest that he feels that this is not going to work.
And we know already, I've got no time for what the Tories did on immigration. They were useless, but they did made a big change. They said that students would not be able to bring their families in, which is going to make a big difference.
But that was right at the end with Rishi Sunak.
It was.
Before that, they'd had 13 years of mocking
and they
this
also
up.
said that you'd have to, they wouldn't be letting people in unless they were earning a salary of at least 38,000, and Labour watered that down. So.
And Boris Johnson has so much to answer on this.
Over 900,000 on his watch.
Boris Johnson just literally, he said on this very studio, sat on that sofa next to Camilla Tominey, well, after the pandemic, we let a lot of people in to restock the shelves.
Boris Johnson wave, they call it. 930,000 in 1 year.
There's your Boris Johnson wave. If you're watching, good morning, Boris Johnson. Should we talk to political editor Christopher Hope, who's in Westminster for us? Morning, Chris. So it was unusual for the Prime Minister to do a press conference this morning at 8:30. What does that tell you about his new comms strategy? But also, was there anything in this speech? You've listened to a lot of Prime Ministers talk about immigration. Was there anything that makes you think this may now offer a solution?
Well, let's break all that down. This Immigration Act, Andrew and Bev, has been in the going through the channels here in Whitehall for 3 or 4 months now. So the timing coming out on the back of that difficult result in the Runcorn by-election and losing those councils a week last Thursday, that's what matters there. The language from the PM, that is what I think has changed. He said 5 times he wants to take back control of our borders, and we heard that refrain, didn't we, during the 2016 referendum, and the Tories failed repeatedly to deliver that. In my question, I was trying to make that point. There's been 3 immigration acts since 2014. 2 of them said explicitly they would reduce net migration. That didn't happen. Why can you succeed? But the language there is pure reform. He said there that there are forces that are slowly pulling this country apart. That, to me, is a criticism of multiculturalism. How will that go down with the Labour left? And also, he said, we are becoming an island of strangers. Now, this is language you could hear very clearly from the mouth of Nigel Farage, but it's Keir Starmer saying it in his briefing room here in Downing Street. So I think that what is happening here, yes, there are measures here that will aim to cut migration. We don't know what the figure is. We asked that in our question. He wouldn't give it. But clearly the rhetoric behind it is aimed purely at Labour and reform, because that is where the battle is being fought right now in politics. The Tory party is frankly nowhere.
And he attacked the Tories' record, Chris, and he was quite right to attack the Tories' record. But Labour's record in government was pretty poor too. If you remember when the Eastern Europeans joined the European Union, most other countries had transitional limits, arrangements, but the Blair government didn't. What did they say? We'd get 15,000, 20,000 in the first year, and we got 750,000. And so it went on.
Yeah. Well, exactly right, and I'll be speaking to Yvette Cooper very shortly for GB News, and that will air after midday on the channel, so do stay tuned for that. But the point is, we've been here before with this government. They said they would tackle illegal migration. Well, you heard from Mark White moments ago. The figure now for this year is over 12,000 small boats arrivals. That's an increase of a third on last year. The government will blame fairer weather. The Tories will say you removed the reason not to come here, which is being deported to Rwanda. And you heard him at the end of that press conference, if you saw it on Breakfast. He says, no, we're not going to go and pull out of the ECHR. That was quite a firm response there. We are not pulling out of the European Convention on Human Rights, the policy which the Tories and definitely Reform UK believe is the only way to tackle illegal migration. But today is all about the overall migration figure. The timing, I think, comes ahead of the Office for National Statistics. Their figures come out a week on Thursday. So that should show a fall because of the measures brought in by James Cleverly when he was Home Secretary, banning family members coming over. And this should go further. And he did say to us, didn't he, in that question, if this doesn't work, I reserve the right to take more measures. But it hasn't worked before. And will the Treasury of Rachel Reeves in the front row, sitting alongside where I was sitting, will she block it? She's worried about concerns about growing the economy. Will that be a reason why it won't work? We'll wait and see.
All right, Chris, that's Chris Hope, our political editor in outside number 10. And of course, stay tuned because he will be interviewing the Home Secretary, who always managed to miss us on the broadcast round yesterday, but he's interviewing her, and that will be broadcast on the channel a little later.
OK, let's see what former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster makes of this announcement. Morning, Kevin. This all happened under the Tories' watch. The reason we're in this mess was 14 years of what appeared to be utter indifference to large numbers of migration over a very short period of time.
Well, listening to Keir Starmer this morning, I know he didn't take the road to Runcorn at Easter, but he certainly seems to have taken the road to Damascus, given some of his previous positions on immigration, not least 5 years ago when he objected to a flight of serious and persistent criminals to Jamaica, but now he wants to deport anyone who's got a criminal record. The issue we're looking at past immigration statistics, and Andrew rightly cited going back to 2004 when the Eastern European countries joined, is that actually free movement was always heavily undercounted. You know, for example, it was estimated about 3 million people had arrived under EU free movement. When the EUSS opened up for people to register their rights, we got over 6 million applications. So even some of the historic figures never really said what has happened with migration. Some of what's been announced today will make a difference. Others is a little bit smoke and mirrors. For example, raising the salary threshold to 38,700 has probably removed a lot of non-graduate jobs anyway from being eligible for a skilled worker visa. In practical reality, i.e. an employer's not going to pay that. But what was perhaps missing is the points you've been making. What's actually going to happen about sectors like care, where we're still waiting for a long-term solution to funding, and other sectors where they are going to have to actually try and recruit more people from the UK? Is Labour prepared to put some of the sticks into the welfare system to get people taking up those roles, as well as just offering carrots around training?
Kevin, I hear what you say about carers, but a lot of this problem, a lot of the immigration problem, was it 930 or was it 940,000 migrants entered Britain in under Boris Johnson's premiership in 1 year? A staggering figure, and you didn't stop the boats.
Well, let's start, Andrew. Some of that, I think the figure you're talking there is up to June 23, and the vast majority, a lot of that period was under Rishi Sunak's premiership, and there were actually some changes planned for 2022 had Boris continued that were not implemented in the latter part of 2022 as they could have been. And of course, remember, we in 22 did have the issue with Ukraine, with large numbers of people arriving at the start of that war, although we are now seeing the numbers there lower. And of course, the one thing that situation has is the Ukraine schemes are still open. A peace deal that's fair and just might see a lot of people return. A peace deal that leaves a lot of Ukrainians thinking Putin will attack again might well see large numbers move into Europe, including the UK, affecting net migration. But yes, clearly there were things that should have been done at an earlier stage. Late 2022, salary thresholds should have been raised. The emerging issues in the care worker visa, we should have looked at, for example, removing dependents. It was about the only route that had more dependents than main visa holders, which was a sign of some abuse going on. But as we said, a lot of reduction that Keir's claimed responsibility for today is due to the changes that were made in the last few months of the Conservative government. OK, Kevin. All right, thank you so much. Kevin Foster there, former Immigration Minister under the Conservatives. Still to come.
Find out what phenomenon had Manchester gripped yesterday. And we're going to find out more about the silent epidemic said to be taking over children's lives. I don't think you'll be too surprised what that is.
hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Spring showers are possible across many areas of the Mediterranean over the next few days. Some of those could be heavy at times, maybe with some hail, thunder and some strong gusts of wind. It will also be generally quite breezy around coastal districts, but further inland away from the showers there will be some drier conditions prevailing and sunny spells managing to poke their way through at times. And into the outlook period as well, we will still see some of those sunny spells to enjoy at times.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You've got Cambridge versus Oxford tonight, although you might want to ring up Oxford and see whether or not they've actually heard of Kai. I think rankings is a great thing. When I was at university, it was very intense. Sure, it creates a really competitive atmosphere, but if you go to an elite university, you should expect a competitive atmosphere because you should expect that by the end of it, you will be refined in fire to be amongst the best in the world at whatever subject you're studying. So I frankly think it's fantastic if you could weigh yourselves up against your peers. Obviously, it runs against the sort of pathetic wokery that we've seen in recent years. It doesn't want anybody to be able to see, how they measure up against other people. But I don't know whether this is woke or if it's just pathetic. But of course, I have it on good authority that Kai had a very healthy work-life balance when he was at Oxford. Maybe a little too healthy, wouldn't you say, Kai?
Well, it's no surprise that the Cambridge person on the panel is a bit boring.
Where did you go, Kai? Where did you go? Just for the record, where did you go?
Oxford.
Right, let's carry on.
And I do apologise to the viewers. You probably didn't expect to have two Oxbridge plankers on your screens tonight. Look, everybody knows where they stand in their classes. All the Cambridge has done is vowed to review class lists, weekend lectures, teaching outside of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You and I both know it's a tough slog.
Should be.
It's a difficult one. It should be. Our elite universities should be a place where you're tested to the limit. It is an assault course, You have 8 exams in 10 days to judge the entirety of your degree right at the end of it. But you don't need to be ranked in a public forum in your class to know where you stand.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Now, shocking new statistics shared exclusively with us revealed that 40% of toddlers already own an electronic tablet.
And it gets worse. Imagine a 12-year-old is now, on average, spending 29 hours a week on their smartphone. Why have they got one?
Yeah, is it a case of careless parenting or are we facing a full-blown digital epidemic? We're joined in the studio now by the founder of Health Professionals for Safer Screens, Dr. Becky Foljam. Sorry, Becky. Good morning. Now,
Good morning.
None of this is news to parents. We know how hard it is. But what are you seeing when you're looking at the evidence behind your research? What are the difficulties for children?
Well, it's interesting, Bev, that you say none of this is news for parents, because I know we all really viscerally feel that the amount these children are on devices is wrong and too much. But actually, I think what we're trying to bring
to the audience of parents and professionals and anyone who's working or caring for children is there's a lot of stuff that parents don't know. So they're not aware of the impacts on a child's eyesight, their speech and language development, their sleep. And I think we really need a public health campaign to communicate this to parents because, yes, we feel it's wrong. We can see the opportunity cost. They're on the hours and hours a week when they should be doing something else. But we're not communicating to them the whole child health harms
How does it impact
of these
child's
devices.
eyesight?
Well, the rates of short-sightedness in children have gone up threefold in the last 20, 30 years. And we've now got between 15 and 20% of our children in the UK are short-sighted, and that's set to get much worse. Short-sighted children, it's not just that they need glasses, and it's a cost of a minimum of £12,000 per child to provide them with that and the appointments. It's the knock-on effects, and that has long-term implications for that child. And I don't think parents know that if they're on screens for an extended period of time and not outside enough, which we know is the single biggest preventative factor, then they are much more at risk of developing short-sightedness. Not many parents know that.
So you're saying that parents are giving their kids screens, not out of a cruelty, not that they don't care about their child, but they think, well, this will keep them happy, this will keep them quiet, and they're doing it for their benefit. I sat next to somebody from Google just recently at an event, and he said none of the children in Silicon Valley, absolutely none of them would ever be seen near a phone because they know what harm they do.
I know, the hypocrisy. And what you've just described is the digital dummy. And we can't blame parents for just handing them a screen and saying, oh, aren't they nice and quiet and settled? What parents aren't understanding, because we're not communicating with them adequately, is what that's quietly doing to their brains. And there's good, robust evidence now that the more you use screens to pacify children, the higher the risk of poor self-regulation skills.
Becky, come back and talk to us again when we have a little bit more time. We've got to...
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. In Worcestershire, the M5 southbound between junctions 7 and 8 is delayed due to a road collision. One of 3 lanes is closed, causing 30-minute hold-ups, with traffic expected to ease by 11:30. Further disruption is on the M11 northbound exit slip at junction 8 due to another incident. 1 lane is closed, with normal conditions by 10:15. The M48 is closed from junction 1 Os to junction 2, Newhouse for planned maintenance, with diversions. And on the trains, Southern and Thameslink are running reduced services between East Grinstead and East Croydon. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
What does it feel like to even greater wins?
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning, 10 o'clock. It is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So the Prime Minister, in a robust speech at Downing Street at 8:30, said Britain's migration experiment is over.
He was addressing the nation just an hour ago. This is what he had to say.
Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders and close the book on a squalid chapter for our politics, our economy and our country.
But not the Prime Minister nor his Home Secretary are willing to give any kind of figure to the number of migrants they want to reduce the total by, so we have no measure, really, to hold them to account.
In 2019, it was widely believed in the United Kingdom and abroad that the UK was not only properly prepared, but was one of the best prepared countries in the world to respond to a pandemic. This belief was dangerously mistaken.
£230 million and counting. The COVID inquiry on track to break all records, becoming the most expensive inquiry in UK's history, you might say the most pointless. We're going to tell you why it's reached such a staggering amount of money.
Is it your position that trans women are women?
Well, I've said, you know, the answer I've given to that before is that that I accept that to be the case.
Well, that embarrassment is First Minister of Scotland. John Swinney is not going to be impressed with the major change hitting the Scottish Parliament today.
This judgment is based on no evidence whatsoever. Over 100 Special Forces soldiers have been summoned before these inquiries. Not one IRA leader has been summoned in the same way.
That's the ex-minister Sir David Davis calling for stronger protections for military personnel as a coroner's ruling challenges the justification of SAS killings in Northern Ireland. He's going to join us later in the show.
And becoming an Alzheimer's patient is almost always a choice. We're going to be meeting the doctor who claims that it is. What do you think of that? And he reckons you can avoid it altogether. Very interesting, that doctor on the Alzheimer's, because he believes there is now research which means you can avoid Alzheimer's if you just live a different way.
Yeah.
Controversial.
It certainly is, particularly if you know somebody who's got Alzheimer's. My father had Alzheimer's, and interesting to see if he could have avoided it.
Yeah. Some people will take that as very empowering advice, and some people will find it deeply offensive.
And patronising.
And patronising.
I think I'm probably in the latter group.
Yeah, I understand that. I think if you've lived with someone with Alzheimer's, that would be a very hurtful accusation that could have been avoided. But we're going to look at the science and the detail behind that in the show this morning. Also, Mark White on this immigration speech of Keir Starmer, also that happened this morning. There's a lot going on. Here's the news headlines now with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer has promised a significant fall in net migration. Sir Keir Starmer said this morning, without controls on immigration, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. The government's unveiling its long-awaited white paper outlining how it plans to cut net migration. The proposal will include things like a 10-year citizenship wait and a crackdown on foreign care workers. The change from 5 years to 10 will come with exceptions for people who make a high contribution to the economy or society, who will be able to be fast-tracked for permanent settlement rights. Speaking this morning, the Prime Minister promised net migration will fall significantly by the end of this Parliament.
Every area of the immigration system work, family and study will be tightened up so we have more control. Skill requirements raised to degree level. English language requirements across all routes, including for dependents. Now, make no mistake, this plan means migration will fall. That's a promise.
From today, trans women are to be banned from female toilets in the Scottish Parliament following last month's landmark Supreme Court ruling that biological men cannot change their legal sex. Alison Johnston, the presiding officer, said access to Holyrood's toilets would be based on biological sex, but some existing lavatories would be designated as gender-neutral spaces. Equalities campaigners say that the decision will leave trans people excluded at the heart of Scotland's democracy. In other news, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has offered to meet the Russian president in person in Turkey on Thursday. It comes after he said his team were ready to meet Russian representatives following Vladimir Putin's suggestion of peace talks, subject to an unconditional ceasefire starting from today. Russia's president put forward the proposal for talks in Istanbul on Thursday after European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, threatened him with fresh sanctions if Russia failed to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire starting today. The US president has urged Russia to accept the meeting invitation immediately. Meanwhile, David Lammy says Vladimir Putin must get serious about engaging in peace talks. The Foreign Secretary has warned of an existential challenge for European security as he prepares to announce further sanctions targeting Russia. Mr Lammy is hosting counterparts from France, Italy, Germany, Spain and Poland and the EU at Lancaster House after a weekend of diplomacy for Ukraine. It comes as Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll be waiting for Vladimir Putin in Turkey after the Russian president said he wants to hold direct talks with Kyiv. According to Foreign Office officials, Mr Lammy is planning to announce further sanctions targeting those supporting Moscow. Now, the US and China, the world's largest and second largest economies, have agreed to slash tariffs on each other as they seek to end their trade war. Speaking after talks with Chinese officials in Geneva, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told reporters the two sides had reached a deal for a 90-day pause on measures. US Trade Representative Jameson Greer said so-called reciprocal tariffs were now at 10% each. In real terms, it meant the US is reducing its 145% tariff to 30% on Chinese goods, as a tariff of around 20% had been in effect from previous administrations. China has agreed to reduce its 125% retaliatory tariffs to 10% on US goods. Back home, the Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning for thunderstorms, which could lead to flooding and disruption in parts of the UK. Much of England and Wales enjoyed sunshine and temperatures of up to 25 degrees yesterday, but downpours are forecast for today. The weather warnings are from midday until 10 p.m. It covers almost all of Wales and an area of England stretching from the southwest across to Kent and up to Stoke-on-Trent. And in the biggest night for British television, TV's finest descended on London's Royal Festival Hall for the BAFTAs. ITV's Mr Bates versus The Post Office scooped Best Limited Drama, whilst Ruth Jones won in the female comedy category for her role in Gavin and Stacey.
I'm not going to lie, this is immense. I wasn't expecting to win this, no way. I've won a BAFTA before, of course I have, in 1976. It was the Barry Arcade Fruity Technician Awards. And I was grateful for that, but this is cracking.
And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at 10:30.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. Now, we are going to bring you some breaking news, I think, this morning. The government has unveiled its long-awaited plan to slash net migration.
Proposals include things like a 10-year citizenship wait, a so-called a ban on foreign care workers and a requirement to have a degree before you come here for a job.
That's right. So our Home Security Editor, Mark White, joins us now to digest this. He spoke at 8:30 this morning, the Prime Minister, Mark, and we've been sort of mulling over the detail of what he was saying this morning. There isn't a huge amount of detail. There's very little that you can hold him to reckoning on further down the line. But it was the kind of speech that I thought, if Nigel Farage used some of those words there would be national outcry.
An island of strangers.
Well, that was a key one, wasn't it? We're in danger of becoming an island of strangers. He spent the whole speech really talking up the contribution that migrants have made to the country, while at the same time telling us that in recent years the balance has changed, with many migrants not contributing as they should to the economy and actually driving down wages, which, of course, is a driver behind the government's ambition to try to get net migration down. But key to this is, it seems, trying to encourage British employers to recruit from the pool here in the UK and not to just constantly go for cheap labour overseas. But that's easier said than done. You've got to then get British workers to want to take these jobs. You've got to get British employers to invest more in training and apprenticeships for many people here in this country as well, which increasingly we have seen a sort of move away from as they go for sort of more skilled labour from overseas to come over and do the job on a cheaper basis.
Was it a misstep or an oversight that he didn't mention the small boats at all in the speech? He was going to be trying to, particularly as you're breaking news today, 12,000 people have arrived illegally this year, another record.
Well, listen, his speech, he wanted really to focus on the issues around legal migration, but they're all intertwined.
Yeah.
The small boats crisis is the most visible manifestation of the immigration crisis as a whole. It's what people see as individuals breaking into our country, circumventing our borders, to then, in many cases, perhaps abuse the asylum system with a view to getting to stay in the UK. It's a highly contentious issue, and yes, you're right. On that very day that he brings forth these new plans, we can confirm that 12,000 small boat migrants have now crossed since the beginning of the year. That's well over 35% up on where we were this time last year. In fact, this time last year, it was June before we hit 10,000 migrants who'd crossed the English Channel.
We know this is all because of reform, because I was just checking. He had something called, in his manifesto, he had mission statement, first steps, milestones. That was the last one, the milestones, were in December, 8 milestones. Didn't mention cutting elite migration. No mention of it, Mark. He's only doing this North London Liberal lawyer, because of the reform surge in the polls.
Well, we can say that the white paper has been months in gestation. It might be argued, and you may well have a strong point here, that it's assumed a new priority, and perhaps some of the measures in the white paper have been sort of stepped up in the light of the successes that reform has been having. There's no doubt, just listening to the language there, you know, it was a tougher language in terms of what he wants to do in reducing the number of migrants who are coming across here who are not skilled and who are, as the Prime Minister believes, pulling the wages down, and that the wages down because they're coming in and doing the jobs cheaper. I mean, it was... What's interesting, I think, and I've had a copy of the white paper through, so I'm just going to start pouring through that now to see the detail. I've got a briefing a little later as well. There wasn't much detail in what the Prime Minister said. Some of it has been briefed out, obviously, over the weekend. But we know already that we are on a downward trajectory, whatever this government might say, because of policies that the previous government introduced around stopping students from bringing their dependents over and stopping many other employed sectors from bringing dependents over, from raising the threshold for salaries for certain skilled jobs. So it's going down, and it's estimated, I think, that these changes might bring it down another 50, 60, 70,000. But we're still talking, you know, several hundreds of thousands, maybe 500,000 net migration this year when the figures come out a week on Thursday. That's nowhere near enough as far as most people in the country are concerned.
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because he gave this very anti-migration speech based on this white paper, and it was the final question from one of the reporters who said to him, would he disapply the ECHR to appeals to remain in this country? And he said, no. And he stepped right back into his human rights lawyer's shoes, didn't he? He stepped right back into his legal shoes. And he said, no, because we have to fulfil our obligations on the global legal stage. And we're like, well, that, my friend, is who you are.
Yeah.
Why are you still pretending that you're not?
North London Liberal lawyer. That's what he
this is what you're up against. And it was the same with the previous government. They wouldn't step away from that either, because they're all being instructed by lawyers within the governmental departments who are telling them that you can't do that.
Minister. Can't do that, Minister.
Yeah, so they don't. And then you have a system whereby those who are advocating on behalf of migrants, illegal migrants and asylum seekers have really got their act together over the last decade and are now very well versed in being able to apply the most obscure legislation to their appeals with a way to ensuring that their clients get leave to remain in this country. We've seen ridiculous examples about that, with chicken nuggets being cited as a reason to stay and alike. But the fact is, generally speaking, these lawyers now, migration lawyers, human rights advocates, working on behalf of these migrants, are able to ensure that these people are allowed to stay because of the fact that in many cases they can't go back to their home country because it just wouldn't be safe.
Thank you, Mark. And Nigel Farage just put on Twitter, on X this morning, just 15 minutes before Starmer started his speech, he said, on the day of Keir Starmer's big fight back against Reform UK, 250 young men are already crossing the Channel by 8 a.m. How many of those could be Iranian terrorists?
Well, make that 400 now.
Good Lord.
You heard it here first.
And the optic.
But also whilst clamping down on caring women that want to come and look after our elderly. It makes no sense. Mark, thank you so much. Right, time for our current giveaway, the biggest today. You know what it is. It's that fabulous motorhome worth £67,000 and £5,000 in cash. Here's all the details.
Great Britain is ready for you to explore this summer, and there's still plenty of time to grab this fabulous family motorhome. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, the Elnag Baron 560 comfortably sleeps 4, has integrated bathroom and kitchen spaces, and plenty of storage for all of the things you'd need to bring along on your next adventure. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that anywhere you visit in your brand new motorhome is done in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. You
Still to come this morning, we're going to be meeting the author who claims that becoming an Alzheimer's patient is almost always a choice. That's a very controversial statement.
You didn't mishear that, and we'll be challenging him on that, of course. But up next, can weight loss jabs actually now help not just stop obesity, but prevent cancer? We'll discuss that next. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's our passion, you know, health and fitness is our passion. And we was always telling the people we were doing the workouts for, get the kids involved, you know, build the healthy habits into them at an early age, and they stand a way better chance, you know, you sticking to it
on with them later on in life,
At what age do you get to work with them?
They're anything from the age of sort of 9 to about 12 at the minute.
Tell the viewers a little bit about Jacob, his story, how you've been helping him.
So Jacob had been getting bullied, and he even quit his local football team as well due to name calling. And he knew we were into boxing and he wanted to give training a bit of a go. So we took him under our wing and started doing a bit of boxing with him, playing a bit of football, just getting him moving and getting him a bit more active.
Getting him off the screen.
Yeah.
He had a bad gaming habit, you know, and he would spend all his time in his room, sort of on his you know, devices.
Mm-hmm.
So our focus was to get him out and get him active. I mean, the bullying stopped. He's lost a lot of weight. I mean, it was never about the weight loss for us. It was just getting him confident again. Our aim is to get him back to playing football soon.
And is the bullying stopped because they think he's fit enough now, he could whack them back if they...
I think it stopped because he's with us. You know?
So what do you do with these kids? How do you get them to lose this weight?
So it's physical activities. So Jacob doesn't like boxing, really. He likes football, so we're doing football with him. With Spencer, it's mainly talking to him, because he's fairly active, but his parents describe him as a little bit hot-headed. He suffers a bit of autism, and, you know, he gets a bit angry with situations when plans change last minute. So it's talking to him, really, and finding what activities they like. And with the diet, they've got to eat clean.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
10:20, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. I'm delighted to say we're joined in the studio by Matthew Torbett and Alex Armstrong this morning. Fellas, we're reflecting on this speech of Keir Starmer's from 8:30 this morning. Matthew setting out this very anti-immigration position. Who wrote that speech for him? Because it wasn't him.
No, I mean, he doesn't write his own speeches. No Prime Minister does. So I think, you know, it comes off the back. I think I said before the elections there will be an immigration reset in May. It was always touted. And it comes off the back of polling that Number 10 have done privately, which shows that there is a pool of voters they think are up for grabs to try and potentially win the next election. And it isn't necessarily those going towards reform. They believe it's the more middle-of-the-road centre voters who are now at the point where they don't see immigration as wholly a good thing and actually it's having an impact negatively on their lives. I think the actual content, until about 5 minutes in, his tone of voice changed ever so slightly, and I thought, oh, this is not his instincts. He's not quite comfortable saying this sort of stuff, but knows he's got to, in a way.
The North London Liberal, who all his mates are migration lawyers, referring to us as an island of strangers. Were you happy with that? Did you feel comfortable with that?
I think it was vague enough for maybe some to feel happy with. I think there is an element, a broader element of an island of strangers in the sense of, I think probably for the last 40 years, there's a real lack of community in this country. And I think you can point to immigration partly, and people living next door to each other they don't really know, and potentially maybe they don't speak the same language, aren't really sure of one another. I think there's something to be said of the deindustrialisation and the wrecking ball of communities that Thatcher did in the 80s, and the lack of, I suppose many communities all went and did the same work, whether it be the mines, the steel, anything else. And I don't know, I'm not religious, but I keep hearing more and more and wonder whether the role of the church and the diminishing role of the church until recently plays a part in a lack of community and people having something they can all rally behind. I think the politicians at the top of the tree over the last 40 years haven't helped that cause because people have no faith in politics and politicians anymore.
Alex, will that speech give people faith in Keir Starmer when it comes to immigration now?
No. This is charlatan, isn't he? He voted 15 times in opposition against tougher immigration rules. Only once did he vote in favour of them. He abstained 8 other times. He is running scared of reform. It's quite obvious. They have moved into his battleground. He's trying to move into their battleground. Nobody who's voting reform, by the way, is going to buy this all of a sudden change. And what an epiphany to come to so late in the day. 20 years immigration has been too high in this country, and now the Prime Minister has finally said, oh, it's a little bit too high, maybe we should bring that down.
But won't say how high.
He won't say how high, and he won't put a cap on it, will he? Which is the interesting part.
Yeah, so we can't judge him. He shouldn't. I think, one, you sign your own electoral death warrant. We saw that with David Cameron. And I think I worry about the fact that if you put an arbitrary figure on it, one, to either please people or two, to please the Treasury, perhaps, and go, right, this is a comfortable level people are happy with. There are sectors, and I've seen you touch on the care sector this morning, and other sectors that are in dire need of people, which, if we're going to have a long-term, we've not had one for years, a long-term industrial strategy of how we create workers of the future for this country, homegrown workers, that doesn't happen overnight, and therefore there will be, I wouldn't say a reliance, but a need for people to fill certain gaps for a little bit longer.
But it seems to be based on the idea that if you just don't bring over care workers, and we lost about 50 to 70,000 because of the mandatory COVID vaccines in that industry. Remember that. Those people just resigned overnight. If we don't bring people from overseas to look after our elderly, I can promise you there's not a generation of young men in this country in their 20s who are going to go and want to work in the care sector.
And that's because we've been undercutting the wages in this sector with cheap labour for decades. And on top of that as well, I mean, I've been speaking to nurses, people who are training. They're not even guaranteed jobs anymore in the NHS. So this is a fallacy by the left to say, oh, no, we must keep immigration high because people don't want to do these jobs. People do, but we have to stop importing cheap labour first, because why on earth would those companies spend more money on more expensive people when they can get someone to do the same job for cheap?
But how is Starmer going to get this great unwashed army of people on benefits, off benefits? How is he going to do that?
Again, you need to grow the economy. We need to be creating jobs, and we're not doing that when we're pushing away the wealthiest people in the country. Jeremy Corbyn's put out a tweet today saying we need to tax the rich. Well, look how well that's done for Rachel Reeves. She's had the lowest tax receipts since Rishi Sunak. We tax the rich, they leave, and they don't create wealth.
Yeah, and Rachel Reeves is desperate to create growth, isn't she? So she quite likes cheap migrants coming in here because that, she would argue, might help growth. I think she'd be wrong, but that's probably her view.
Yeah, I mean, Keir Starmer actually disagreed with her on that this morning.
He?
This is interesting. I think they will be at loggerheads. The Treasury are already very unhappy with the white paper, and I imagine Yvette and Rachel will be falling out partly over this. I think this will be the undoing of Rachel Reeves, potentially, though. I think they're going to set her up for a fall, if anything. I think there's already been briefings about the winter fuel allowance being totally the Treasury's decision and their decision only. Reports of Morgan McSweeney having his head in his hands during a meeting. I thought, well, someone should tell him he's got some power and that he could potentially overrule as the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. And on top of that, the welfare reforms that are totally Treasury-centred because we need X amount of people. I don't like the rhetoric of the great unwashed getting them into work, because I think you will always have people that take the mick in any system.
There's a lot of them.
But I think... No, what I think there is a lot of...
10 million on benefits.
Well, this is what I mean.
I don't accept it.
But this is why...
But there are millions and millions of people with such poor mental health and such poor physical health that they can't do jobs. I don't buy those figures.
No, maybe not the figures. I do buy the fact that we are totally sicker as a nation, and we've probably let people down in senses like that, and that maybe needs a sense of prevention. I believe, and that's probably where our politics differ, that you need to lead with sensible and a little bit of compassion. You need to help those who can't work, and you will always get those that can't work, right, disability and whatever else, to make sure they've got enough money to survive, not be cutting that. And for those that can and should work, you support them into that. If they take the mick, I don't like the idea of sanctions, but you've got to look at something. It's carrot and stick. I totally get that. But people are struggling. And I think COVID, as Bev goes on about, was a huge part of that for lots of young people.
And the benefit system does incentivise you not to work. This is the problem. There are people who would go to work and earn less money than they would do on benefits. And quite right for them. I mean, they're putting themselves first, which every person should. They're deciding that they'd rather have a little bit more money in their pocket, which I totally understand. At the end of the day, we have to create a benefit system that supports people, as you said, that can't work and are unable to work, not people that can. And quite frankly, on the government's record, I mean, they seem to regret every policy they've put out the last 9 months, don't they?
Yeah. Listen, let's just do one more quick lighter story before we say goodbye to you two. As a Manchester boy, Matthew, and as a Manchester girl, I promise you, I never saw this growing up in Manchester. Have a quick look at this video. This was on Saturday in the city, and somebody caught it on their phone. Look at that.
Wow.
If you're listening on the radio, this is what's called a dust devil. The person filming it you can hear them going, what on earth is that? What is that? What is that? I mean, it's just extraordinary. Now, apparently, it's not a tornado, Matthew. There's a difference.
It looks like one to me.
But again,
it does, doesn't it?
It would look like that if I was walking down towards the Arndale Centre and that was coming over the horizon.
I've still not seen the explanation of what it is, though, or what's caused it. My brother was sending me messages going, have you seen this? I said, I don't know, people are just driving and acting normal. I'd be trying to hide.
So British.
It takes a lot more than that up north.
Yeah. That's all right, just walk around it.
To get you to put your pie down. Sorry, I'm terrible stereotyping.
Very much so, yeah. No,
It is, and I'm amazed it hasn't got more pick-up, that footage. I spotted it, and I really wanted people to see it. If you were there...
And is there no theories at all for what's caused it?
It must be the hot weather, surely. The hot weather... Is it hot and cold weather that causes these sorts of things? I mean, I don't know. I'm not...
Obviously a bit of wind as well. But, no, not as hot as it was down here, I don't think. But no idea. Very concerning, that's all I can say.
Yeah, if you were there at the weekend and you do have any explanation as to what it was, then please let us know. It was described by people who were there as absolutely terrifying.
It's to do with irregularities with the temperature, apparently.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I was almost there.
Well, Manchester's nearly always cold. It got hot and there was a panic, and even the weather didn't know what was going on. Yeah, a most amazing thing I've ever seen, said one onlooker. Witnessed it in the city on a really not a very windy day. It was like a wind tunnel between the buildings had created this mini vortex. It was absolutely bizarre. Right, I think we are out of time, gentlemen. We'll have a little longer next section, but here's Tatiana Sanchez now with the news headlines.
Bev, thank you. The top story, Sir Keir Starmer has promised a significant fall in net migration. Sir Keir Starmer said this morning, without controls on immigration, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. The government is unveiling its long-awaited white paper outlining how it plans to cut net migration. The proposal will include things like a 10-year citizenship wait and a crackdown on foreign care workers. The change from 5 to 10 years will come with exceptions for people who make a high contribution to the economy or society, who will be able to be fast-tracked for permanent settlement rights. Speaking this morning, the Prime Minister promised net migration will fall significantly by the end of this Parliament. From today, trans women are to be banned from female toilets in the Scottish Parliament following last month's landmark Supreme Court ruling that biological men cannot change their legal sex. Alison Johnston, the presiding officer, said access to Holyrood's toilets would be based on biological sex, but some existing lavatories would be designated as gender-neutral spaces. Equalities campaigners say the decision will leave trans people excluded at the heart of Scotland's democracy. And Ukraine's president has offered to meet the Russian president in person in Turkey on Thursday. It comes after he said his team were ready to meet Russian representatives following Vladimir Putin's suggestion of peace talks, subject to an unconditional ceasefire starting today. Russia's president put forward the proposal for talks in Istanbul on Thursday after European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, threatened him with fresh sanctions if Russia failed to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. The US president urged both sides to accept the meetings immediately. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me at 11.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound will buy you $1.3194 and €1.1851. The price of gold is £2,447.43 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,592 points. Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Up next, Alzheimer's.
Well, apparently it's a choice, but very controversial to say so. GBNews have come forward your say to let us know if you think that could be valid. We're going to be talking to the scientist who says that it is.
This is Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Some of us are starting off the week with a bang because thunderstorms are in the forecast as this area of low pressure moves its way in from the south to provide a slightly more unsettled picture for some of us. We've already got areas of rain across western Scotland to kick off the day. This is heavy at times, so it will tend to ease off throughout the day. Outbreaks, though, lingering for parts of eastern Northern Ireland as well. It's really into this afternoon that we'll start to see those heavy, thundery downpours developing. particular focus for them to spread across parts of London, through the Midlands, into areas of Wales, Cheshire region as well. Northern coast of the West Country could also see some heavy downpours at times. There will be hit and miss. Not everyone in these regions will see them, but where they do occur, some localised flooding is possible, so it's worth taking care. And if you do miss them, there will be some warm sunshine in play. Temperatures rising to the mid-20s across parts of Wales and England. 19-20 degrees Celsius possible through the central belt of Scotland as well. These showers will tend to ease off as we do move into the evening, sort of rumbling a little bit across parts of northwest England, southwest Scotland before eventually dying their way out. And many of us will then see a dry second half of the night with some clear spells. Some mist and fog will develop in places, pushing in across eastern coast at a time with that breeze coming in off the North Sea, but it will be relatively mild. Temperatures in the south particularly holding up in double-digit figures, single figures more likely across areas to the north and the east. Well, away from some cloud across the far north coast of Scotland, it's likely to be a very bright, sunny morning for most of us on Tuesday. Again, there'll be some showers and thunderstorms cropping up, but this time much more limited to parts of South Wales and areas of the West Country, and many of us really will get away with a nice, fine, warm, dry day. Temperatures again peaking in the 20s, perhaps 25 degrees Celsius in the south and east. And the theme throughout the rest of this week is for the sunshine really to be prevailing, remaining dry for most of us with some warm conditions persisting.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M48 westbound is closed from Junction 1, Aust, to Junction 2. Newhouse for planned maintenance with diversions in place. In Wakefield, the M62 westbound at Junction 29 has a collision, closing all lanes. Expect 15-minute delays with normal conditions later. On the M69 northbound in Leicestershire, one lane is closed between Junction 1 and the M1 due to a multi-vehicle incident. And on the trains, Merseyrail faces disruptions between Hooton and Ellesmere Port or Chester. Southern services are delayed between Uckfield, East Grinstead and East Croydon, affecting travel plans. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Britain's Newsroom, it is 10:36.
So a new book will challenge the conventional view of Alzheimer's, claiming that for the vast majority of people, it is not an inevitable part of ageing, but something that can actually be prevented.
So we're joining studio now Patrick Holford, chair of the Alzheimer's Prevention Expert Group, who joins us now. Patrick, it's a very powerful message, the idea that you can prevent Alzheimer's. There seems to be a sense that it's just inevitable with ageing for a lot of people. Why is it not?
It's not inevitable, because half of people don't get it. And one point to make very clearly is that less than 1 in 100 cases are caused by genes. So there's a few very, very rare genes which will cause Alzheimer's. So possibly for up to 99%, we can prevent it. And even a major UK biobank study, which, by the way, left out 2 of the most important risk factors, for reasons I'll explain, concluded that 73% can be prevented. Now, the terrible thing about Alzheimer's, which is really a shrinkage of the brain, is once you've got holes in your brain, there is no way to reverse that. So, by the way, I mean, on the front cover was that statement, not mine, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. Leading neurologist in America says, becoming an Alzheimer's patient is almost always a choice. This book explains why.
That's a pretty offensive statement.
Well, look at it like that. My father-in-law is in this journey. Somebody with Alzheimer's would love nothing more than all of their family members to know that they don't need to get this. Just like someone who's had a heart attack or someone who's got diabetes, they would say, I wish I had known earlier what's driving these diseases.
And what do you do, Patrick? Our viewers who are watching think, brilliant, I'd love to prevent Alzheimer's. What are the lifestyle changes to make?
Well, let me give you some really, really quick wins. Omega-3. I mean, we're talking about eating fish. Simply eating oily fish once a week cuts risk by 1/3. Just that. And there are now maybe 14 good studies.
There's tests that prove that?
Absolutely. 14 random...
Why isn't the government screaming this from the rooftops?
Well, that's exactly...
It would save the country a lot of money.
They would.
A lot of money.
But let me give you another one as well and then answer that question. B vitamins, there's a substance. We're a charity, foodforthebrain.org. We've tested over 400,000 people. It's all free. And there is a very simple blood test called homocysteine. So it's a pinprick test. If your level is high, your risk for Alzheimer's dementia rockets. The solution is very, very inexpensive. It's a B vitamin supplement, B12 and folic acid. And we had the health economist at Oxford University cost what would happen if doctors tested homocysteine, recommended a 10p a day vitamin pill, and the answer is it would save over $60 million, or pounds. So the point is that our government pledged 166 million towards Alzheimer's research. And as far as I know, not a penny of it goes to non-drug prevention. That's the point. You will then ask why.
Yeah.
And the answer is there's no money in it. Let me give you an example.
What, no money to make out of it?
There's no money to make out of it. So the whole agenda is being driven by amyloid. We're being told that there is this stuff in your brain called amyloid plaque, and you read the headlines of the newspapers that say there is an injection, anti-amyloid, that will get rid of this. Now, the reality, number one, is that Alzheimer's is not caused by one thing. For somebody, it might be a lack of omega-3. For somebody, it might be, they're lonely, they have no social interaction. Somebody else doesn't exercise. Someone else has diabetes. It's a combination of factors that create the perfect storm in the brain. So these anti-amyloid drugs, which cost, or would cost, the NHS £50,000 per person. And by the way, NICE, the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, have said they are not worth it. So right now, the NHS cannot prescribe them.
50,000 a year.
50,000 a year. Clinically, omega-3 and B vitamins combined have already had 3 times the effect. And here's the real shocker, because remember, Alzheimer's is shrinkage of the brain. In a study with omega-3 and B vitamins, which will cost you maybe £100 a year, the rate of brain shrinkage in people with pre-dementia reduced by 73%. In the latest drug, donanemab, the rate of brain shrinkage increased by 20%. So what we're really in right now is a pharmaceutically led sort of industry that is pushing for a cure. I don't think a cure will come because there isn't a single point. And $250 billion has been spent so far getting nowhere on drugs. So the message of the book, and by the way, former Vice Dean of Oxford Medical School, Professor of Pharmacology, says we urgently need to adopt the approach in this book. Rather than waiting for some miracle cure, which I don't think will happen, but we do not have yet, why not educate people about what they can do to prevent...
So people watching and listening, to sum it up, they're in my age, I'm in my 60s now. So what should I be doing to make sure?
Well,
to try to make sure.
Let me first say...
I might be unlucky, I might get the gene.
And I'm approaching 70, so,
Very well on it.
I'm in... Thank you very much. Foodforthebrain.org is a free website where you go on, you do a cognitive function test, so it measures where you're at, you fill in a questionnaire, it works out what your risk factors are, and then it tells you. So I don't know for you, you might eat lots of fish and that's not the problem. You might have loads of sugar, that might be the problem. You might not take any vitamin D. Having low vitamin D increases risk for dementia by 9 times. So there are lots of little things, as well as exercise, active mind. You probably have a very active mind. I mean, we've watched really bright TV presenters who have a very active mind and they drift into dementia. So the point is, it's a perfect storm. You need to learn. The book is about teaching people how to prevent Alzheimer's.
I think it sounds fantastic. I think you're all right, dear.
Well, I'm not worried yet, but you never know.
No, but you're right, you don't know. And actually, we were just saying very simple things. This is a bit embarrassing, but I've started doing crosswords as opposed to fiddling with my phone in bed. And actually, I looked in here, and one of the things you recommend is doing a crossword.
Yes.
Simple, fun, why not?
Can I get a little bit of water?
Yes, you can. I haven't had a drink of that.
Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and I don't want to offend anybody with this, but it's the truth. A lady called Dorothy, her husband, she kept finding him in different rooms at night because he couldn't find the bathroom.
Yeah.
He couldn't turn his computer on or off. He was a computer programmer. He was a gardener. He couldn't plant his spring garden. He was diagnosed with what's called mixed dementia, both Alzheimer's and vascular. They found our charity. They went to foodforthebrain.org. They did the test and really listened. For example, sleep's important. He went to bed an hour early.
Yeah.
He quit sugar. He started to take the B vitamins to lower the homocysteine. He took the omega-3 to increase that. He started to get active. He's now Morris dancing. Now, I don't know if that's good for you or not.
Oh, I think you'd be marvellous at that, Andrew.
And basically, he's planted his whole spring garden. He's made some considerable improvement, even late in the day. And I don't want to claim that this is reversible, because really I don't think it is. But it made a difference, and his wife Dorothy said, "I've got my husband back from dementia."
Well, I think it's a really empowering message, actually, for all of us.
Yeah.
I take my omega-3 supplements every night, 3, 6 and 9, before I go to bed. Wake up in the morning and ace a crossword.
Yeah, I do. I'm big on vitamin D.
Yeah, vitamin D.
Big on vitamin D.
Yeah, is a
you know, one of my teachers in this area, who died a few years ago in his mid-90s, psychiatrist. 2 weeks before his death, he stopped seeing patients.
Good Lord.
4 weeks before his death, he said, 4 days before his death, I'm not feeling very good. He checked himself into the local hospital 2 days before he died, without pain, without drugs, with a completely sharp mind. We may lose our hair.
Yeah.
We do not need to lose our memories.
OK, brilliant. Well, the book is Alzheimer's Prevention is the Cure. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Foodforthebrain.org.
Patrick Holford, chair of the Alzheimer's Prevention Expert Group. Right, let's just remind you of the official advice from the NHS when it comes to Alzheimer's. They say there is currently no cure for Alzheimer's, but medicines are available that can help relieve some of the symptoms. For more, you can visit the NHS official website. The drug companies will be delighted with that message.
Also, and up next, we're heading to Scotland to find out what major change is being brought in Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament today. But first, you want some of that elusive holiday sun. Stay tuned.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Spring showers are possible across many areas of the Mediterranean over the next few days. Some of those could be heavy at times, maybe with some hail, thunder and some strong gusts of wind. It will also be generally quite breezy around coastal districts, but further inland away from the showers there will be some drier conditions prevailing and sunny spells managing to poke their way through at times. And into the outlook period as well, we will still see some of those sunny spells to enjoy at times.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
(10:49) Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From today, voice of common sense in Scotland, trans women are going to be banned from using female toilets in the Scottish Parliament.
This, of course, follows the recent Supreme Court ruling which determined that the legal definition of a woman is based purely on biological sex.
So let's go to Holyrood and talk to our reporter there, Tony Maguire. Tony, this is a big step, bearing in mind it was the Scottish Government that got itself, in my view, into all sorts of difficulties over trans rights. And we even had a man identifying as a woman ending up in a female prison.
Yes, certainly. Good morning to both of you. Pretty eloquently summed up there. This is really the latest step, some would argue a long time coming, after that Supreme Court decision a few weeks ago that dictated gender by ways of the Equality Act was representative of biological sex. Now, that has meant that here at the Scottish Parliament from today, 3 bathrooms are going to be repurposed into non-sex bathrooms that anybody can use. That's in addition to the female and male bathrooms, and that trans women are no longer allowed to use the female bathrooms. Now, of course, as you say, this is off the back of that Supreme Court decision, and First Minister John Swinney, well, he wanted to wait until the Equality and Human Rights Commission had weighed in, and that they have now. They have said that while they compile their full body of recommendations to go ahead with the Supreme Court ruling. Now, across the political spectrum, of course, this move has caught many an eye, not least the Scottish Conservative Equalities Minister, who says that John Swinney now needs to stop dragging his feet and roll out the same logic across all public services here in Scotland. But it's important to distinguish the Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament. It's the Scottish Parliament corporate body that has actually enacted this in the public space here at the Parliament building. Also worth noting that only about 1% of the 600 staff actually identify as transgender. We see that nationwide, quite a small number affected, but nevertheless we have heard from the Scottish Trans and Equality Network. Now, Alison Johnson, the presiding officer here at the Parliament, she said that she wants this to promote confidence, privacy and dignity, but indeed that Scottish Trans and Equality Network says that it will not do that for trans people, and actually this will exclude us and segregate us at the heart of Scotland's democracy. Now, John Swinney, as we mentioned, he had been dragging his feet in terms to enact this. We are now several weeks gone from that Supreme Court ruling. But always the same, quick to get in there, of course, was former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. Now, as you mentioned earlier, the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, essentially when this huge conversation about trans rights and access into female places and self-identification started, was with that piece of legislation which was vetoed by the UK government. Well, she's weighed in the last week. In fact, just as John Swinney was announcing his programme for government to say that trans women are still women, certainly she is still fighting her corner, and she said that she hopes that the current advice from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, she would be highly concerned if that was going to be the final version of evidence. She says, given the outcry of disdain from the trans community, that she hopes that that will be reviewed. But as for now, certainly changing of the guard here, at least in the lavatories at the Scottish Parliament.
Thank you, Tony. Tony McGuire there.
And she's dug her heels in, hasn't she, Nicola Sturgeon?
Yeah, it hasn't ended well for her, this.
And, of course, she's got her book comes out in the summer.
Oh, really?
£300,000 advance she got for it. I'm sad. I mean, I will read it. I will read it.
OK.
She was a big figure.
Still to come. Guess how much the COVID inquiry is costing you, the British taxpayer, per day. I don't think you will have any idea of the vast waste of funds.
But I suspect you'll know one thing. It's costing too much.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. We'll tell you all about it in just a minute. This is...
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, and very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Some of us are starting off the week with a bang because thunderstorms are in the forecast as this area of low pressure moves its way in from the south to provide a slightly more unsettled picture for some of us. We've already got areas of rain across western Scotland to kick off the day. This is heavy at times, so it will tend to ease off throughout the day. Outbreaks, though, lingering for parts of eastern Northern Ireland as well. It's really into this afternoon that we'll start to see those heavy, thundery downpours developing. Particular focus for them to spread across parts of London, through the Midlands, into areas of Wales, Cheshire region as well. Northern coast of the West Country could also see some heavy downpours at times. There will be hit and miss. Not everyone in these regions will see them, but where they do occur, some localised flooding is possible, so it's worth taking care. And if you do miss them, there will be some warm sunshine in play. Temperatures rising to the mid-20s across parts of Wales and England. 19-20 degrees Celsius possible through the central belt of Scotland as well. These showers will tend to ease off as we do move into the evening, sort of rumbling a little bit across parts of northwest England, southwest Scotland before eventually dying their way out. And many of us will then see a dry second half of the night with some clear spells. Some mist and fog will develop in places, pushing in across eastern coast at a time with that breeze coming in off the North Sea. But it will be relatively mild. Temperatures in the south particularly holding up in double-digit figures. Single figures more likely across areas to the north and the east. But away from some cloud across the far north coast of Scotland, it's likely to be a very bright, sunny morning for most of us on Tuesday. Again, there'll be some showers and thunderstorms cropping up, but this time much more limited to parts of South Wales and areas of the West Country. And many of us really will get away with a nice, fine, warm, dry day. Temperatures again peaking in the 20s, perhaps 25 degrees Celsius in the south and east. And the theme throughout the rest of this week is for the sunshine really to be prevailing, remaining dry for most of us with some warm conditions persisting.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 11 a.m. on Monday, May the 12th, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So according to Sir Keir Starmer this morning, Britain is finally closing its borders. He has declared Britain's open-door immigration approach a failure. He's unveiled strict new English tests, tougher residency rules and plans to defy European courts. But does it go far enough?
Today we publish a white paper on immigration, a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders and close the book on a squalid chapter for our politics, our economy and our country.
But not the Prime Minister nor his Home Secretary are willing to give any kind of figure to the number of migrants they want to reduce the total by, so we have no measure really to hold them to account.
In 2019, it was widely believed in the United Kingdom and abroad that the UK was not only properly prepared, but was one of the best prepared countries in the world to respond to a pandemic. This belief was dangerously mistaken.
£230 million and counting, the COVID inquiry on track to break all records, becoming the most expensive inquiry in our history. We'll find out just why it's reached such a staggering amount.
This judgment was based on no evidence whatsoever. Over 100 Special Forces soldiers have been summoned before these inquiries. Not one IRA leader has been summoned in the same way.
That is, of course, former Minister Sir David Davis calling for stronger protections for military personnel as a coroner's ruling challenges the justification of SAS killings in Northern Ireland. He's going to be with us in the studio in just a moment.
And becoming an Alzheimer's patient, is it almost a choice? We've talked to the doctor who claims it is. What do you make of that?
The BAFTA goes to...
And 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 the award goes to...
Well, Britain's Newsroom, of course, is what they should have said. We're going to get the latest from the world of showbiz and BAFTA a little later. Let's get straight into the news now, because David Davis is waiting to discuss a few very important stories, particularly that one over Northern Ireland, and whether soldiers from that period of time should be held accountable for actions.
Two-tier justice.
Absolutely, that is the definition of two-tier justice. GBNews.com/your say to let us know your thoughts. Here's Tatiana with your news.
Bev, thank you. The top story. Keir Starmer has promised a significant fall in net migration, saying without controls on immigration, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. The government is unveiling its long-awaited white paper outlining how it plans to cut net migration. The proposal will include things like a 10-year citizenship wait and a crackdown on foreign care workers. The change from 5 to 10 years will come with exemptions for people who make a high contribution to the economy or society, who will be able to be fast-tracked for permanent settlement rights. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says Labour can't be trusted to protect UK borders, as Reform UK leader Nigel Farage accuses Sir Keir Starmer of making promises he can't keep. Speaking this morning, the Prime Minister promised net migration will fall significantly by the end of this Parliament.
Every area of the immigration system, work, family and study, will be tightened up so we have more control. Skill requirements raised to degree level. English language requirements across all routes, including for dependents. Now, make no mistake, this plan means migration will fall. That's a promise.
It comes as GB News can reveal that more than 12,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel this year. One migrant died near Boulogne and 66 others were rescued as they tried to make the illegal journey overnight into today. An improvement in weather conditions over the weekend has led to a fresh surge in crossings. Around 400 small boat migrants have already made the illegal journey this morning, with more attempting the crossing. From today, trans women are to be banned from female toilets in the Scottish Parliament following last month's landmark Supreme Court ruling that biological men cannot change their legal sex. Alison Johnston, the presiding officer, said access to Holyrood's toilets would be based on biological sex, but some existing lavatories would be designated as gender-neutral spaces. Equalities campaigners have warned that the decision will leave trans people excluded at the heart of Scotland's democracy. Ukraine's President Zelensky has offered to meet the Russian president in person in Turkey on Thursday. It comes after he said his team were ready to meet Russian representatives following Vladimir Putin's suggestion of peace talks, subject to an unconditional ceasefire starting today. Russia's president put forward the proposal for talks in Istanbul on Thursday after European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, threatened him with fresh sanctions if Russia failed to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire starting today. The US president has urged Russia to accept the meeting invitation immediately. Meanwhile, David Lammy says Vladimir Putin must get serious about engaging in peace talks. The Foreign Secretary's warned of an existential challenge for European security as he prepares to announce further sanctions targeting Russia. Mr Lammy's hosting counterparts from France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Poland and the EU at Lancaster House after a weekend of diplomacy for Ukraine. It comes as Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll be waiting for Vladimir Putin in Turkey after the Russian president said he wants to hold direct talks with Kyiv. According to Foreign Office officials, Mr Lamy is planning to announce further sanctions targeting those supporting Moscow. The US and China, the world's largest and second largest economies, have agreed to slash tariffs on each other as they seek to end their trade war. Speaking after talks with Chinese officials in Geneva, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told reporters the two sides had reached a deal for a 90-day pause on measures. US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said so-called reciprocal tariffs were now at 10% each. In real terms, it meant the US is reducing its 145% tariff to 30% on Chinese goods. And China has agreed to reduce its 125% retaliatory tariffs to 10% on US goods. In other news, Pope Leo has called for an end to a polarising war of words as he hosted an audience with international media for the first time. Speaking in Vatican City to thousands of members of the media, he said we are living in times that are both difficult to navigate and to recount, adding they present a challenge for us all, but it's one we should not run away from. The pontiff said, let us disarm communication of all prejudice and resentment and even hatred. It comes after his first Sunday address since his election as the new pope, where he appealed to crowds in St Peter's Square for no more war. In other news, the Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning for thunderstorms, which could lead to flooding and disruption in parts of the UK. Much of England and Wales enjoyed sunshine and temperatures of up to 25 degrees yesterday, but downpours are forecasted for today. The weather warning covers the period from midday until 10 p.m. It covers almost all of Wales and an area of England stretching from the southwest across to Kent and up to Stoke-on-Trent. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more news from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. This is Britain's Newsroom, of course, with Andrew and Bev until midday.
So, the former Tory Minister David Davies is calling for better legal protections for our soldiers. That's after a coroner ruled SAS soldiers who killed 4 IRA members in a 1992 ambush were not justified in their act.
David has staunchly disagreed with the decision, calling it demonstrably wrong. And he joins us now. Morning, good to see you. Just explain to our viewers the context of this issue, because it is rather historical.
Yeah, it's over 30 years ago, I mean, which is one of the reasons the coroner got it wrong. But it starts with intelligence that about 20 IRA people, men, were going to attack the Coal Island police station with basically an anti-aircraft gun, a huge machine gun. It fires bullets that big, all right? Give you a sort of measure of it.
So that was designed to cause a lot of damage.
Designed to kill lots, and the damage it did.
Yeah.
Designed to kill lots of policemen. They just the bullet goes right through, in the front wall, out the back wall. And what they were going to do is they're going to mount it on a lorry and then take it down to Coal Island. They're going to mount it on a lorry in the churchyard, Clonard churchyard. That's what the intelligence said. And there are going to be 20 of them. So there are going to be other Kalashnikovs and so on. So the SAS and the police, 12 SAS men and the police, line up in the courtyard after dark. It's February, very cold and dark, and wait for them to come so that when they're mounting up the weapon, they can arrest them, because they're not so dangerous then. Instead, they do this somewhere else, and they go to Coal Island, about a mile and a half away from, and they fire 60 rounds from this thing. I mean, it fires at 600 to 1,200 rounds a minute, so it's quite fast. 60 rounds of this thing, lots of Kalashnikov rounds. And of course you could hear and see this from the churchyard. I mean, intimidating thing to happen. Then they drive back, and we're talking about 10:30, 11 at night now, and they fire some more rounds from Kalashnikovs at some other point, as they're going past a dead IRA man's house. But nobody knows this in the churchyard. They turn up in the churchyard, the lorry turns up, the machine gun's mounted with a man behind it, right? And they don't know where the other 3, 4, 5 cars are with the rest of the 20. And so what the judge is saying is they should have stood up and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, you're under arrest." Well, that would be a personal death sentence. I mean, this thing could have wiped out the dozen soldiers in 5 seconds, And, of course, they don't know where anybody else is with the other weapons. There were other weapons there. So they stand up and they attack the lorry. They've got to take out the main threat. It's a standard military approach, really. And it's all done under tight legal control. There are policemen there watching them when this is going on. The end result, the evidence, the other cars, one of them at least was set fire to make sure it destroyed the evidence in it. We think there was a machine gun in that one. And the end result is that the Director of Public Prosecutions spends 6 months investigating, including interviewing the people in command. All right? So, and then says there's no case to answer. They behave legally.
They were doing their job.
They were doing their job, These people call themselves the East Tyrone Brigade, so they're thinking they're at war.
Yeah.
They're not calling themselves this or that gang, which is what they really are. And bear in mind when they arrive back, they've already they think they've killed a lot of policemen. They're would-be murderers, right? And they're hyped up. These people are 20, 21, 22. They're hyped up from all of this noise and attack. And so to suggest that you could somehow peacefully arrest them under those circumstances is mindless, frankly.
Why is this being discussed now, David?
Well, because what's happening is Sinn Féin in particular in Northern Ireland, I'm trying to rewrite history, and they're encouraging the families, and you can understand why, to bring inquests to find out what happened to their relatives. Of course, they're not bringing the inquest for the 1,000+ people who the IRA killed, or the UVF and so on. A couple of thousand people, I think, in total died. No, they're not pursuing them. They're all protected by Tony Blair's letters of comfort. Do you remember the letters
just
of
remind people that was when he was trying to get the Northern Ireland peace deal.
And you know, you can understand it. I don't criticise him for this, frankly. You want to bring this war to an end. They were losing the war anyway. The IRA were losing. They were running out of money, something I did, you may remember at the time, and so they were ready for a deal. And in order to close the deal, he said, "Well, we will not prosecute anybody." So everybody in prison's let out. Those who are running free, as it were, he issues, I think, it's over 200 letters of comfort.
They're pardoned.
They're pardoned, in effect, and protected. So you've got the people doing their job heroically, patriotically, honourably, and explicitly within the law, are being hounded in their retirement years, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the murderers, the deliberate murderers, are let off.
It's not just this incident. There were others.
There's a previous one called Coke. There will be others coming, because what's happening? I mean, look, I can sympathise with the families, but what's happening is that the sort of Sinn Féin establishment is trying to rewrite history and turn us into the oppressors. When, remember, people forget the British Army in the first instance went out to protect the Catholics. It was only because of the way it played out that it ended up as it were the provisional IRA. It's called the provisional IRA because it was the violent IRA. You know? So that's it. And what we're trying to do, and it's important to get this point across, there's a petition, went down in Parliament on Friday, Thursday or Friday, to ask for debate. But I've got to get 100,000 for that, but I want more than that. If I can get it, I want hundreds of thousands, for a very simple reason. I want the government, it's abolished the sort of legacy law that we put in place, the Tories put in place to protect these soldiers. I want it to, it's done that, too bad. I want it to replace it with explicit protection for these soldiers. They all, after all, have faced the law already with a prosecution inquiry, and I want
what's the
signatures
now?
It's at 22,000 this morning when I came out in two days. So it's not bad going. But on my Twitter feed, there'll be the address, you know, the sort of internet address you go to, and I'll send you the internet address as well, so you can publicise it, because you know, and bear in mind there are 2 million soldiers, retired soldiers in the UK. Hundreds of thousands of them served Northern Ireland. Anybody who fired a gun will now feel at risk. And they shouldn't. They absolutely shouldn't. These are decent people who served our country.
Yeah, and I think the public mood is to protect our soldiers and our police officers, actually.
Why would anybody join the army?
Well, that's the other problem. I know young soldiers are worrying. I know from what we've heard, Hereford and elsewhere, worrying, you know, when they go off, as they do all the time, because we've got other operations. When they go off to fight for their country, I mean, they think to themselves, do I have to take my lawyer with me?
Yeah, exactly. That's not a world we want to live in. David Davis, always good to see you, as always.
Pleasure.
Breaking news now.
Sorry, I messed that up, didn't I? The US and China have reached a deal to slash tariffs for 90 days. It's a de-escalation of that trade war. It means US tariffs on Chinese imports will fall to 30%. While Chinese tariffs on US goods will fall to 10%. We'll give you more as we get the details on GBNews.
Classic Trump negotiation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, he told everyone it was going to be horrific.
Well, it was going to be 140%, I think, the tariffs at one point.
So you could then prepare for it to be better. And even Keir Starmer fell for it, didn't he? He went, oh, we're in a marvellous position. Not in that good a position. America's still doing better than us in terms of that tariff deal, but it was not as bad as we thought it was going to be. Right, take a deep breath and enjoy our daily reflection. Here we go.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Hello, my name is Nimsa Bungay and I'm the pastor of Freedom's Ark, a member of the Evangelical Alliance here in the Tottenham Town Hall. And I want to welcome you to today's reflection. It's taken from John chapter 16, verse 20, where Jesus says, "Truly I say to you, that you shall weep and lament, the world will rejoice, and you will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will be turned into joy." The disciples were to suffer the pain of Good Friday, experience the relief of the resurrection. So as Jesus speaks of leaving, he promises them joy. So here's the promise. Sorrow doesn't stay. Jesus says it will be turned to joy. not removed, transformed. LaQueer put it in this way: weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Not always instantly, but always faithfully. So what can we do as Christians? We let ourselves feel the sorrow, but we don't stop there. We look for moments of joy. Some of us may start our day by writing down one thing we're thankful for. And I pray that even as we grieve, that God teaches us to believe that joy is not gone forever, that we can hold on till the morning comes. Today, as we hold on to our hope, we hold on knowing this, that sorrow does not have the final say.
Very profound.
Sorrow does not have the final say. Quite right too. Always look for the light.
Absolutely. Now, still ahead, the night full of glitz, glamour and gold. But did your favourites win a BAFTA? Our showbiz reporter Alec Davies will have a full summary. But first,
a top private school is offering healthy masculinity workshops for parents to help them combat what some people would describe as toxic influencers, people like the Tate brothers. But is this what society has really come to? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
UK churches are under criminal attack. They reported 9,000 crimes within the last 3 years. In Bilton in Ainsty, lead theft from St Helen's ancient parish church roof caused significant water damage. 6 items were also stolen, including a historic pewter flask. Fearing reprisals, a church volunteer spoke anonymously about the impact of the crimes.
Financially, it just brings churches to their knees. It's hard enough now for churches to survive with dwindling congregations and ageing populations. Churches don't get any government money. There is no statutory funding which is available and comes into churches. So once you get theft, whether it's internal theft from items inside the church or lead from the roof, it's just a big expense. So any theft is hard to both administer and get over, apart from the trauma of losing items that historically are part of our heritage.
We need everybody to stand together on this. It doesn't matter if you're a person of faith or not. These buildings are so important to our country. They form the fabric of rural life up and down the great British countryside. They are community hubs. They are places that glue some really isolated communities together, a bit like our pubs. You know, these are precious parts of our heritage and we've got to protect them.
Theft and vandalism from rural religious sites are harder for the police to tackle.
We are so isolated, very remote, and churches are very often the focal point of communities. The Home Office funding formula really pays scant recognition of the challenges facing rural communities. Therefore, we don't have the resources big metropolitan areas have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, 11:20 with Andrew and Bev, and our panel are here, Alex Armstrong and Matthew Torbett. Apparently, we're not coming to you just yet, fellas.
We just have to keep our viewers and listeners in suspense, but not for long, because we want to tell you about our great giveaway, the motorhome worth over £67,000 and £5,000 tax-free. Have a listen to how you can win it.
Great Britain is ready for you to explore this summer, and there's still plenty of time to grab this fabulous family motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure, the Elnag Baron.
Good luck with the competition. Right, the fellas are here, which is just about appropriate, because we're talking about masculinity, lessons in masculinity. Matthew, why do we need to give boys lessons in masculinity?
I don't think we need to give them lessons in masculinity. I think from the story that I've read, I think it's just about bringing boys up to be decent boys, really. And I think it's well-meaning. It says the parent sessions led by the school's pastoral team and external speakers equip parents with tools and language to talk with their children about respect, empathy, emotional expression, consent and peer influence.
But shouldn't parents be doing that?
It's parents that are going to these lessons, apparently. It's for parents. And
that doesn't sound very masculine. That sounds a bit wussy to me.
No, well, if it's me, I think there's ways to teach boys to be able to... Because this is the problem. I think there's mixed messaging sometimes with boys. It's express your feelings, but not like that.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be anger or emotion or whatever else. I think there's a way of being able to go, listen, don't be taking the mick out of your mate if he's crying. We're all allowed to cry. Upsetting things happen. Put your arm around him, check if he's all right. But also, that doesn't mean you're horrible to girls either. And, you know, for me, I'd hate to say it's common sense, because there's obviously something going on here. But I think partly the parents probably do need it. I was speaking to Alex off-air about the fact that I think there are far too many parents, who won't like this, some of them, that mollycoddle their kids.
100%.
And I see it everywhere. We are not building our kids up. I think Gareth Southgate mentioned it in his Dimbleby lecture. We need to normalise resilience, normalise rejection. You're not always going to get what you want. And that's OK, because the pushbacks will make you stronger in the long run.
See, I find you two both really interesting, Matthew and Alex. You might sort of politically be on different ends of the spectrum, although what does left and right even mean anymore?
True.
But you're both from not the easiest of backgrounds, not the easiest of childhoods. You don't blame anybody for for that hardship that you both went through, and you've both made success of your life. How have you become such fabulous, attractive men?
Oh, that's like
I wasn't talking about you.
Dating profile.
Poor Andrew.
Andrew's involved, surely.
Oh yeah, you too, Piercy.
Well, look, I think there's a little bit of, you know, when you do have those tougher upbringings, there's definitely a part of you that wants to change that, because you can see there is a cycle that revolves around it, and you want to break away from that cycle. I don't think every young man is capable of that or has the desire to do that. When it comes to toxic masculinity, though, I think there's a real issue that we're not talking about here, which is toxic feminism, that has driven that toxic masculinity. Because I always see these political things as reactionary. Every action has a reaction in the world. And because men have been, in my opinion, over the last decade at least, been told to suppress a lot of what makes them men, they've now given birth to these people like Andrew Tate, who might be saying things that are uncomfortable.
But what's an example of toxic feminism? What is an example?
Well, I'll say stuff. I mean, you know, just give you an example. I guess maybe telling men that they shouldn't, that being a man itself is not something to celebrate.
Problem. The idea was that men were the problem.
Men are
a lot
problem.
of the feminism was the people who stand in our way it is the patriarchy.
Exactly.
And it can be.
Yes, that's true.
Particularly in the workplace or certain official settings where men do not open the door for women to come in. I don't mean literally, but to follow up the career ladder, for instance. And it comes down to us also parenting. Division of labour once you have kids is a massive issue. But Alex is right in terms of the fact that we swung the pendulum that way, and then we kind of didn't explain to men who they were meant to be in that world where equality was the buzzword.
I suppose it depends, because Listen, I'm a straight white guy, you know, for the last 34 years. I've never felt patronised towards. I've aimed to understand. I've never felt ostracised or that I was the problem, and maybe that's because of I'm confident in who I am as a decent person, I'd like to think. I think in lots of movements, the worst people are the loudest, and what you get is the more extreme elements of feminism and the online jokes that obviously will affect men in a certain way when they're going, you know, death to all men and whatever. There's a total serious conversation to be had, not just in this country but elsewhere, about misogyny, about violence against women and girls and the ridiculous rates of it, and of femicide. That doesn't mean, without sounding like an online joke, that it is all men. And there's a point of educating men on this sort of stuff and how to be better allies to women who are struggling than going, wipe the slate clean of all of them, essentially.
We played a video on my show on the weekends of this woman who was mocking male loneliness, for example, right? And saying, oh, why can't you just go out with your mates? Why can't you do this? And then, you know, I think that what happens is...
Would you have mocked female loneliness?
Well, if we would... It's like International Men's Day. If we said, let's have an International Men's Day.
Please don't.
Why can we have an International Women's Day? We have an International Men's Day. It's like, OK, so, I mean, I hate all those days. I think it's silly. Why is it OK to reject the principle of men having a day when there's women having a day? And I think when you start playing people off at each other like that, you're going to get the opposite reaction from a small group of people who will build a base that will become very, very vocal, and perhaps even they become toxic afterwards. And I think we just need to taper all the divisions, get rid of all the labels, and also let men have you know, taking away the sort of the nuclear family has been a big problem as well. Men have been sort of said, no, you must also stay at home and raise the kids, which perfectly acceptable thing to do, by the way, but it's almost been told to them. So I think we've lost a lot of what made society men and replaced it with nothing. And then men are trying to figure out who they are.
Yeah, and it's your deindustrialisation again. What does the world of work look like for younger men if they don't want to just sit behind a desk? Because a lot of men are not designed biologically to sit behind a desk all day.
And we touched on it a lot at university going back, that sociologically, you look at men feel their identity more in their labour than women do, probably because of stereotypes over the years. And if you take a man's job from him, his career from him, it has a deeper impact than it would do a woman, as daft as that sounds.
Tell us about football. Sadiq Khan, what's this extraordinary story? Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London.
This is a great story.
I have to say, one of my pet hates.
Right, OK.
Ruined Arse's great city. Turned it into a car park, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah, OK.
Football. What's this about, Matthew?
So this one,
you're a great footballer.
Well, some people have said, I don't know. No, this one made me laugh because he's one of his deputy mayors, for I think he's environment and climate change.
What's we got a deputy mayor for climate change for?
Well,
how ridiculous!
Well, it's one of his big things in it where you live, whatever else.
God, can't stand it.
So he had faked a football career before going into politics. He had told Turkish media, which I think he's from, he's possibly Cypriot, that he had played for Inter Milan in Italy's top league and then was due to sign for Real Madrid. And apparently that's never been the case. And having played football against him last month, I can clarify that he's not quite that calibre.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I have to. A little bit of breaking news for you now. The breaking news is, I believe...
we don't know.
Sorry about this. Breaking news, I believe, is because Christopher Hope has been talking to Yvette Cooper. He's just sat down with her in just a few moments ago, and this is what they had to say.
So what's the overall number then for our viewers? 100,000 fewer visas. Where will we be on net migration by the end of the Parliament? Below 500,000 a year?
Well, we're clear it needs to be substantially down. So that's certainly the case. Is that where you want to be, 500,000? No, it needs to be substantially down.
So below that?
It needs to be substantially down. So we absolutely needs to be substantially down. I mean, you've heard, I think, your first question shows we have had a whole series of targets that the Tories set out previously. None of them were met. In fact, they often did the opposite. So I think that just undermined the credibility of the whole system. So that's why we are taking a different approach to this. The way we're doing things is setting out step by step the action that we'll take. People will be able to see the consequences, they'll be able to see the progress that we're making, but we'll do that step by step rather than just going for rhetoric and saying things that nobody can believe.
I say 500,000 and you didn't deny that.
It's going to be substantially down.
Below that?
It needs to be substantially down.
She didn't really give a figure, did she?
Well, you can hear the whole interview on Good Afternoon Britain at 12 o'clock. That's only in about half an hour's time or so.
But you think she's right not to give a target figure?
Yeah, I think it gives them wiggle room. Politically, it gives them wiggle room. And I think people will be able to judge for themselves in my book. If you say we're bringing it down substantially and we have legal migration come down from 1 million to 900,000, most people would go, well, that's not substantial.
Right. Yeah.
If you get it to 500,000, it sounds like a lot of people, but you've cut it in half. Well, that's potentially substantial to some people. So it gives them wiggle room, but still allows themselves, you know, people can still attack them and go, it's not enough, obviously.
I do wonder this morning, Alex, people who voted for Keir Starmer and voted for Labour because they're pro-immigration are going to feel really conned this morning.
They really are, aren't they? They're going to go, who is this party?
Yeah.
Why is Nigel Farage light on my screens?
He's called Britain an island of strangers.
Yeah, well, this is not... This is the language of the far right, isn't it? So-called far right. And I think this is going to be very shocking for Labour voters. I don't know who he's trying to appeal to. And I said this in the first segment earlier on today. He is not going to win traditional Labour voters because they don't think this is an issue. And quite frankly, the people voting Reform aren't going to go and vote Labour now. They feel too betrayed as it is. And frankly, there's no targets, as we saw, which she said she doesn't want more rhetoric. Well, that is exactly what she just put out there, rhetoric. Substantially down doesn't mean anything, and they'll benefit from the Rishi Sunak's Tory party policy, won't they?
And do you know what? An island of strangers is one of those lines that is going to come back to haunt him because he's going to have it pushed in his face on every interview. At least he should. Right, Tatiana Sanchez is here with the news. Thank you both so much, Alex and Matthew.
Bev, thank you very much. The top stories at 11:30. Sir Keir Starmer has promised a significant fall in net migration, saying without controls on immigration, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. The government is unveiling its long-awaited white paper outlining how it plans to cut net migration. The proposal will include things like a 10-year citizenship wait and a crackdown on foreign care workers. The change from 5 to 10 years will come with exceptions for people who make a high contribution to the economy or society, who will be able to be fast-tracked for permanent settlement rights. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says Labour can't be trusted to protect UK borders, as Reform UK leader Nigel Farage accuses Sir Keir Starmer of making promises he cannot keep. It comes as GB News can reveal that more than 12,000 small boat migrants have crossed the English Channel this year. One migrant died near Boulogne and 66 others were rescued as they tried to make the illegal journey overnight into today. An improvement in weather conditions over the weekend has led to a fresh surge in crossings. Around 400 small boat migrants have already made the illegal journey this morning, with more attempting the crossing. And from today, trans women are to be banned from female toilets in the Scottish Parliament following last month's landmark Supreme Court ruling that biological men cannot change their legal sex. Alison Johnston, the presiding officer, said access to Holyrood's toilets would be based on biological sex, but some existing laboratories would be designated as gender-neutral spaces. Equalities campaigners have warned that the decision will leave trans people excluded at the heart of Scotland's democracy. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at midday.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound will buy you $1.3184 and €1.1871. The price of gold, £2,438.47 per ounce. FTSE 100 is at 8,585 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Emily and Tom are with us to tell us what's on Good Afternoon Britain.
Yeah, one story in town today, and that is migration, both legal and immigration. both legal and illegal.
Because you've got Chris Hope's done that exclusive interview with the Home Secretary.
Well, it should be interesting to see exactly how she's going to implement all these changes that Keir Starmer's just announced this morning, 8:30, first thing in the morning. I guess the question is, do we trust the Labour government to get this done? They're talking a very tough game, aren't they? They're saying all the right things, talking about integration, talking about how we don't want to be an island of strangers, talking about low-skilled labour undercutting British workers, all of this stuff that a lot of people have been saying for a very long time. But do you believe that they're going to take the drastic steps necessary?
And I think there's a real problem in this, because care homes are no longer going to be able to have tap into foreign labour. So how is he going to persuade the millions of people here on benefits to do those jobs?
Well, I mean, care workers, they get paid a lot of the time minimum wage or just above minimum wage for a very emotionally and physically draining job. You work in a supermarket for the same amount.
Well, this was one of the questions that the Prime Minister was asked at the press conference this morning. For a long time, it's been well understood that it's been the Treasury that has said we want to keep wages down, we want to keep cheap labour coming in for these sectors, otherwise we're going to have to raise taxes, and particularly in the public sector, in areas like care, pay more money to those doing the jobs. Starmer seemed to avoid the question when he was asked it. He seemed to answer saying, well, the link between growth and migration has been broken. But it's still the case that the Treasury is going to say, well, if you want British people to do these jobs, you're going to have to pay more. So there is an economic question here too.
And this is the seeds for a major falling out with his Chancellor.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is, yeah.
And also, I think when it comes to the care industry, you can't incentivise people, unless there's a huge amount of money, you can't put that wage up just a little bit and then expect people to go and work in what is a difficult, demanding...
But I'm sorry, but for too long, the only lever the government has pulled when it comes to jobs like this is the immigration lever. And I'm sorry, but when people on low wages are coming over with dependents and things, it's not an economic benefit. Something needs to be done. If that does mean sort of forcing higher wages, I don't know if that's even possible.
But also it misunderstands...
Immigration can't always be the lever.
It misunderstands the fact that people make different choices when they get here. People come on a care visa and they're not always going to remain a care worker. I mean, if they always remained a care worker, we'd have a surplus. We'd have hundreds of thousands of care workers, but we don't, because they change jobs.
OK, interesting.
For a couple of months,
From midday, but still to come on Britain's Newsroom, the COVID inquiry is taking its toll on the country's finances. We'll tell you why in just a minute. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Some of us are starting off the week with a bang because thunderstorms are in the forecast as this area of low pressure moves its way in from the south to provide a slightly more unsettled picture for some of us. We've already got areas of rain across western Scotland to kick off the day. This is heavy at times, so it will tend to ease off throughout the day. Outbreaks, though, lingering for parts of eastern Northern Ireland as well. It's really into this afternoon that we'll start to see those heavy, thundery downpours developing. Particular focus for them to spread across parts of London, through the Midlands, into areas of Wales, Cheshire region as well. Northern coast of the West Country could also see some heavy downpours at times. There will be hit and miss. Not everyone in these regions will see them, but where they do occur, some localised flooding is possible, so it's worth taking care. And if you do miss them, there will be some warm sunshine in play. Temperatures rising to the mid-20s across parts of Wales and England. 19-20 degrees Celsius possible through the central belt of Scotland as well. These showers will tend to ease off as we do move into the evening, sort of rumbling a little bit across parts of northwest England, southwest Scotland before eventually dying their way out. And many of us will then see a dry second half of the night with some clear spells. Some mist and fog will develop in places, pushing in across the eastern coast at a time with that breeze coming in off the North Sea. But it will be relatively mild. Temperatures in the south particularly holding up in double-digit figures. Single figures more likely across areas to the north and the east. Well, away from some cloud across the far north coast of Scotland, it's likely to be a very bright, sunny morning for most of us on Tuesday. Again, there'll be some showers and thunderstorms cropping up, but this time much more limited to parts of South Wales and areas of the West Country. And many of us really will get away with a nice, fine, warm, dry day. Temperatures again peaking in the 20s, perhaps 25 degrees Celsius in the south and east. And the theme throughout the rest of this week is for the sunshine really to be prevailing, remaining dry for most of us with some warm conditions persisting.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You have the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
So it's the biggest night for British TV. Television's finest descend on London's Royal Festival. It was the BAFTAs, of course.
ITV's Mr Bates versus the Post Office scooped Best Limited Drama, while Ruth Jones won in the female comedy category for her role in Gavin and Stacey.
Who better to tell us all about it than our entertainment editor, Alex Davis. No big surprise about Mr Bates winning?
Definitely not for Mr Bates. If anything, the only surprise is that it did win more.
Right.
Toby Jones was up for Best Actor.
I thought he'd get it.
I thought he'd get it as well. And if he didn't get it, a lot of people thought that Baby Reindeer's Richard Gadd would get it. I don't know if you saw Baby Reindeer last year, the Netflix one. That was a bit of a, sensational. But actually that went to Lenny James, who starred in the BBC's Mr Loverman, which is a story about a Caribbean man who embarks on an affair with his male best friend and hides it from his wife for decades on end. That was probably the surprise package of last night, because not only did Lenny James win, but his co-star, I have to get his name on this one, Ariane Bakari also won Best Supporting Actor. Right. And a lot of people thought it would be Baby Reindeer, Rivals, which is on Disney, Mr Bates. Everybody thought those three were going to perform incredibly well, but it was sort of spread across the board, really.
Did Rivals not do well?
Rivals didn't win a thing.
Gosh.
No, it was up for...
It was such a great remake.
It was up for quite a lot. I think Gilly Cooper was there as well, who obviously she wrote the books. But there was a fair few surprises. Blue Light, that is a BBC drama based in Northern Ireland. That won Best Drama, recurring drama, rather than limited, like Mr Bates.
That's quite good.
Yeah, that beat Wolf Hall, which is the historical Henry VIII one with Damian Lewis, big budget, and that didn't get anywhere near it. Sherwood as well, so it beats out the competition there. There was a lot of surprises. In the entertainment performance, Anton Deck lost, you know, the normally awards darlings.
They win it every year.
Yeah, well, they're very good at the NTAs, so they win that. I think they had like street.
Isn't
20
that because
years.
it's public voted as opposed to non-public voted, and so some people like Ant Deck do quite well with the public?
With the NTAs. In the BAFTAs, the only voted one is the most memorable moment of the year, and that went to Strictly's Diane Buswell and Chris McCaulland, because last year Chris McCaulland's a blind comedian, and they incorporated a moment in their dance where he walked on his own and they dimmed the lights to sort of represent what it was like for him dancing, and that one moment of the year with the viewers. Danny Dyer won his first BAFTA. I was quite happy for that one. He had a very good speech that was edited down by the BBC because there was quite a bit of swearing, but I think we can actually hear a bit of it.
Here it is.
No.
Danny Dyer, Mr. Big Stuff.
I'd like to dedicate this to Ryan Sampson. One of the greatest things to come out of Rotherham, and it's not saying much, but one of the best actors this country's ever produced, I'm telling you. Never done the same thing twice, which is not something I can say.
And it was a strange choice of host, Alex.
Well, it was Alan Cumming, famously anti-British, pro-Scottish independence, Alan Cumming, presenting a British awards do. Very mixed bag for him. I was there and watched the full 3.5-hour ceremony. Quite a few of his jokes fell flat, I have to say. Obviously, it's edited more favourably, but there were a number of moments where he tripped over his words. Introducing Kirsty Walk, who won the fellowship, did a big, extravagant introduction and then completely fluffed it. They had to edit that one out.
Was it political awards?
It wasn't. It was very apolitical, to be honest with you. The only real sort of political grandstanding probably came on the red carpet. There was a trans star of Married at First Sight called Ella Morgan. She turned up with a handbag that said trans men are men, trans women are women on it, emblazoned on it. That was pretty much the only political stand of the evening. A few documentary makers of Ukrainian-based and Gazan-based documentaries, they obviously incorporated that into their speeches. But in terms of the sort of normal political grandstanding we see from these sort of things. It was relatively mundane.
I find that fascinating, especially because the host is based in America most of the time, isn't he? And I would have thought normally there'd have been attack after attack on Donald Trump and those kind of events, and they're not doing it, are they? The mood is changing.
They play it very safe now.
Don't want to provoke him on tariffs.
Right, Alex, thank you so much. Right, we're going to take a quick break after our European forecast. Here it is.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Spring showers are possible across many areas of the Mediterranean over the next few days. Some of those could be heavy at times, maybe with some hail, thunder and some strong gusts of wind. It will also be generally quite breezy around coastal districts, but further inland away from the showers there will be some drier conditions prevailing and sunny spells managing to poke their way through at times. And into the outlook period as well, we will still see some of those sunny spells to enjoy at times.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Now, welcome back.
Guess how much the COVID inquiry is projected to cost? Almost £230 million.
That means that you, the taxpayer, are paying nearly £160,000 every single day. Let's find out why. Molly Kingsley from Us For Them joins us now, and the author of The Accountability Deficit. Morning, Molly. Where is this money being spent? Who is benefiting from this inquiry?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew. What really worries me about this is not so much the cost, although, you know, £250 million on a public inquiry is just astounding, isn't it? But actually, what so far hasn't been uncovered, and, you know, this is an inquiry that has hundreds of lawyers. I think the cost on lawyers alone is projected to be over £50 million. And yet they have failed to spot, it appears, let alone discuss some of the things that, you know, I've been on with you guys talking about. So there are significant failings of governance, of ethics in relation to children and beyond that the inquiry has failed to pick up on. And we know there are a lot of subjects that are out of scope. I mean, the inquiry has been very express that it isn't looking, for example, at the lab leak, let alone the possible suppression of the lab leak. Likewise, it's failed to examine a number of key witnesses about conflicts, about potential conflicts of interest. And I think the whole thing not only risks, you know, being very, very long, very tedious, complete waste of taxpayer money, but actually creating a very Orwellian record of events.
If it wasn't for you, Molly, children weren't even referenced, were they, in the terms of the inquiry?
No, they weren't. The inquiry did include education, so it had a section on, you know, educational deficit, lack of attainment, but it didn't mention the word children in the first terms of reference. And we and others campaigned to get those put in. So, you know, there is now a children's module. Of course, the worrying thing about this is the children's module is right at the end. It's not quite the last module, but it's sometime, probably, you know, either much later this year or into next year. And the inquiry now is going to be under huge pressure to keep costs down. Now, what does that do for the children module, which many of us said should have been the first module? Because, of course, you know, children are the ones whose time is, you know, the clock's ticking on childhood. And these are the kids that already had a lot of their childhood decimated by the pandemic.
And the clock is ticking on us, unfortunately, Molly. I'm so sorry. We've run out of time, but it's always interesting to have your perspective. We are done for today. Emily and Tom are up next.
See you tomorrow.
English tests for new migrants, slashing the number of care visas, and 10 years living here before you can even apply to become a citizen. Has the Labour Party woken up to migration control?
Well, there's difficulties, though, aren't there, on the illegal migration front? 12,000 illegal migrant crossings now since the beginning of this year, 400 just this morning. Can Keir Starmer get to grips on that and the legal migration question?
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's another warm and sunny day for some areas, but cloudier for others, with the risk of some very lively showers and thunderstorms sparking off as the day goes on. And that's because we've got low pressure just nudging north. That brought some showers and thunderstorms across parts of the UK as the weekend ended, and still there'll be further showers becoming established through Monday afternoon, particularly through Wales, the Midlands and the southeast of England. That's where the greatest risk of impacts from these storms, although we need the rain. A very large amount of rain could fall in a short space of time because of these thunderstorms, as well as hail and lightning. And the risk extends there into the southwest as well as parts of the northwest. But otherwise, actually plenty of blue skies for the afternoon and feeling warm where we've got the sunshine, even going into the evening. Still some warmth and still some sunshine. But also these showers will be rumbling on where they do form across Wales and the Midlands in particular. One or two isolated showers elsewhere, but mostly for Scotland into northeast England, it's dry with clear spells. Some low cloud for the Northern Isles, and for parts of Northern Ireland, patchy cloud here and there. There'll also be an increase in the cloud once again overnight across southern counties of England. We could see the odd shower form again through the hours of darkness, but otherwise it's clear spells, most places turning dry overnight with some low cloud just hugging the northeast coast there, and temperatures dipping into the high single figures or low double figures. Now it starts off Tuesday with plenty of sunshine, certainly a brighter day to come for many areas, but the low cloud across the northeast still continues to affect coastal parts of Scotland and northeast England, and we will once again see some showers and thunderstorms